Hello, hello! Welcome back to Brenda's Books. I am so happy you have returned to listen to Queen Andraya. Today we are on Chapter 12. Here we go. Chapter 12. Gut-wrenching. For Queen Andraya, the next few days were nothing less than miserable. She vaguely remembered several notes sent to her bedside, along with various bundles of flowers. But she was too busy vomiting to give them any attention. Dr. Mason's face often appeared by her side, telling her to eat this, drink this, or rub this on her face. Andraya didn't remember doing any of it. But she did recall the tender fingers of Nurse Rose, rubbing some liquid form of something gently over her cheeks. There were times she wanted to sleep, but was in too much pain to do so, and she was too exhausted to open her eyes. These were the times she heard voices, pleading voices, crying voices. One of them was definitely Colleen, but Andraya hadn't the strength to comfort her. In between these visits, Andraya often heard shouting, arguing. She tried to focus through her delirium, but she couldn't make out who it was. She begged and pleaded to Providence, with all the fervor she could muster, that when she finally died, and with all her blood-curdling pain she hoped it was soon, that she would never see Gordon again. The fact that he appeared in her dreams was insufferable enough. Andraya woke up with the warmth of the sun heating her face. She opened her eyes and blinked in the brightness. The first thing she saw was the soft pink lace of her comforter. She blinked again and the large wooden bedpost came into view. Then the blue sky through the window at the opposite side of her long bedchamber. She could not believe it. The gut-wrenching pain was gone. Her headache was gone. And she was in her own bed. She lay there a moment longer, but was soon so hot under the covers that she simply had to get out of them. With one restless heave, she tossed them up and over the foot of her bed. She lay still in her white silk nightgown, not remembering when she had gotten in it. The stream of sunshine pouring through the window beckoned to her. She slid her feet out of bed, but immediately stumbled to the floor. She forced herself back up onto her weak ankles and wobbled her way toward the light outside. She tilted her head back and leaned her face toward the sun. Ah, sunshine! Suddenly, her bedchamber door burst open. The queen jumped in place, gasping. "Oh, your majesty!" Andraya shifted just enough to see Rose, her plump nurse, standing there with a handful of towels, looking alarmed. "I do apologize, your majesty. I did not expect you to be awake, or I would not have come in without knocking." Then she turned to call out into the hallway. "Benjamin! Do see that Her Majesty has a plate of food brought up. She is awake." She scurried back into the room and placed her towels on the bed. "Here, let me get your shawl for you." Rose bustled over to the vast closet and quickly came out with a scarlet-laced shawl, Andraya's favorite. She tossed the garment over the queen's shoulders with impressive ease, considering the nurse's short stature. "Thank you," Andraya muttered. "Why, it is nothing, your majesty. Please come sit down, please." The nurse gently tugged on the queen's arm until they reached a golden velvet chair next to the queen's tea table. Rose shuffled herself into a second chair, close to Andraya, and turned toward her with pointed attention. "I am so pleased to see you out of bed, your majesty. The doctor will be very pleased as well. Tell me, how are you feeling this afternoon?" "It is midday?" Andraya asked, looking out the window again. The nurse raised her eyebrows high. "Why, yes, your majesty." Did her nurse always speak with this kind of energy? Andraya blinked hard as she remembered. Yes, she had always been this way. "Would you mind telling me what day it is, Nurse Rose?" "Oh, it is the 4th day of the month, my queen." "The 4th day of September? Good gracious!" "Indeed. It has been 5 long days. The lot of us have been dreadfully worried over you. It is a very good thing Dr. Mason gave you that charcoal, madam." Andraya turned a sharp head. "Charcoal? Why, yes, your majesty. It absorbs poison," the nurse said matter-of-factly. It is a very good thing you only had one sip of that drink." Andraya inhaled a shaky breath. "Are we certain it was poison?" Her voice came out no louder than a whisper. "I'm afraid so, Your Majesty. That handsome prince said your symptoms were from spider venom, and the doctor agreed." "Spider venom? But we have no venomous spiders in Chaldrea," Andraya disputed. "That handsome prince said it was from Sandrian. He says the gold mines there are full of them. No one is certain if the spider got in your drink on accident or on purpose." The nurse's voice dropped low. "They found a spider in my drink?" Andraya cringed with revulsion. Rose shook her head. "No, madam, but your symptoms do not lie." Andraya groaned. "I dare say. Your bedchamber has never looked quite so floral." The nurse gestured with her head to the wide window-sill, lined with vases full of various flowers. "I believe there are 14 of those." "Oh my," Andraya said, not bothering to conceal her surprise. "Who are they from?" "Well, they all have cards. You will have to read them. But I believe 8 of them are from that handsome prince." She leaned toward the queen and giggled. 8? The queen's eyes bulged. "Who are the tiger lilies from?" "Those are my favorite." "Are they?" Rose stood from her seat and walked over to inspect the various flowers. "I suppose it is good they are from your favorite man, then." "Who, Besnik?" Rose laughed at that. "No, my queen. They're from that handsome prince who has taken a keen interest in you." Andraya rolled her eyes. "Unlikely." Rose laughed again. "You're right, Your Majesty. 8 vases of flowers is not subtle at all." The queen ignored that comment, as she took time to examine each arrangement. "Ugh, who gave me the yellow roses?" "Ah, that would be our dear Lord Bartholomew. They are a perfect sentiment for well wishes, are they not?" "Yes, of course. Throw them out, please. But do not tell him. It was very kind." The nurse fought back a smile. "What about these?" She held up a vase, overflowing with roses as vibrant as the queen's scarlet shawl. Andraya's chest tightened. "I do not care for those either." "But they are from the Chancellor." "Dolian? Ugh! Throw them out!" Andraya cried, throwing a hand in the air. "You do not care for that extraordinary handsome face?" Rose asked, looking astonished. "And I am certain you know what a red rose means." "That man is vile," the queen retorted with vexation. "He cares only for himself and wants to take over my head crown position. In fact, I would not be surprised if he—" Andraya stopped short, as she did not dare let her horrid thought escape her lips. But Nurse Rose knew what it was. She set the vase gently back in its place. "Let's not go pointing fingers quite yet," she whispered. "I will throw them out." Then she turned to the queen and mustered a smile. "But I will not tell him." "Oh, no, please do," Andraya said seriously. The nurse frowned, and so did the queen. "You and the prince must possess the same talent." The nurse lifted one eyebrow high. "What is that, Your Majesty?" "I say too much around you." "I see." The nurse walked back over to the queen and sat next to her again. "I do hope you can keep your food down when it comes. You have grown far too pale and thin. Do not scowl at me now. You are still uncommonly beautiful. Or you will be when that rash goes away." Andraya cocked her head. "Remind me why I put up with you." Rose smiled. "Because I have taken care of you through all those times that—" The queen shot the nurse a blatant warning look. The nurse seemed to understand that continuing her sentence was a line she should not cross. Rose dropped her eyes. "You have been through too much, my queen. And now someone in the palace is trying to—" "We will figure it out," Andraya said, just as a knock sounded at the door. The nurse bustled over to open it. "A meal for Her Majesty." Andraya could not see him, but she knew this was her faithful footman. "Thank you, Benjamin." "My pleasure, my queen," he called through the door. Rose brought Andraya her food, and within minutes she devoured her sandwich, her salad, and all her fruit. She wasn't trusting of her drink, so she let that be. "Where Where is my lady-in-waiting? Andraya asked. Oh, she is with her mother, said Rose. Andraya's head shot up. Mrs. Forthright is here. Rose nodded. Does Her Majesty know her? Yes. She was my childhood governess. How is she doing? Not very well. The boat ride was hard on her, but Dr. Mason says he knows just what to do and has high hopes for her recovery. Andraya let out a sigh of relief. I am so happy to hear it. How is Miss Colleen? Rose smiled sadly. She has been very emotional. What with you and her mother being so ill. Then Rose cocked her head. You know, I have never seen a lady-in-waiting in such despair over her queen's well-being. Andraya crossed her legs. Miss Colleen has always been a compassionate girl. Indeed. Rose smirked. I can keep your friendship a secret, you know. I kept King Gordon a secret, did I not? Abrupt anger blazed through the queen's core. While I do appreciate your silence, Rose, I will not have you speak that man's name in my presence again. Do I make myself clear? She spoke through her teeth. And if I find out you even mention my friendship with Colleen to anyone, I will discharge you. The nurse flushed and nodded. A beat of throbbing silence pulsed the room. Andraya released a hefty sigh. I am sorry to be so harsh, especially after you have taken such good care of me. The nurse stood and took Andraya's empty tray. Well, you are the only royalty I have ever known who has apologized to me. I admire you for that. And I admire your openness with me, Rose, even though it is improper. Andraya smiled at the nurse. Rose returned the smile and hooked the tray on her round hip. I will let Miss Colleen know you are awake. Thank you, Andraya said, then watched the nurse exit her bedchamber, securing the door behind her. And that concludes Chapter 12. I hope you come back next Thursday for Chapter 13, which is called Caring, Concerned, and Criticized. If you want to find out more about Brenda's books, you can visit brendasbooks.net. Until next time, take care.